Yes, indeed, folks. You're listening to Blue Please right here on CynicalRit.com with myself, Total Biscuit. Now, as I said, we're going to be talking about Cataclysm. It's been going now for a couple of months. So, what I would like to say, and what I would like to discuss, is in regards to whether or not it is okay to have more of the same. Because let's be honest, that is exactly, without a shadow, in my opinion, of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. What Cataclysm actually is. And I never claimed that it was anything else. That's something that I think people do need to remember from when I was doing my beta videos, is that what I was pointing out at the time is that what we did not have, and what we still do not have in Cataclysm, neither in the beta, nor in its current format, were innovations of any real description. Let's go and have a look at the features, shall we? I'd like to bring up the feature list. I'd like you all to go on a little bit of a field trip. Yes, indeed. Go and have a look for World of Warcraft Cataclysm features. Yes. Very easy, worldofwarcraft.com/cataclysm/features. When I go through the features, I want to see... That's not actually the right site, is it? Oh, no, there it is. It's down the bottom. Okay. Yes, it is hidden. All the way down the bottom. The game features. And I would like to know exactly where the innovation is in any of this. So let's kick it off, shall we? We're going to start here. 2 new playable races. No innovation here. You want to know why there's no innovation here? Because while the starting zones are possibly the best starting zones that I've ever seen, it doesn't matter. You want to know why it doesn't matter? Because, again, there is no innovation there. 2 new playable races. They don't change the way the game is in a major manner. I'd actually go as far as to say that adding in 1 new class is more innovative and has a greater impact on the game than adding 4 new playable races, which is, of course, how many we've seen since the launch of the game. No innovation. Level cap increased to 85. Do I even need to talk about that? Would I like to point something out, folks? Still, even now, after all this time, it still says, and progress through the path system, a new way for players to improve characters. When I went down to the Cataclysm launch in London, I saw the trailer run about 3 separate times, which always talked about Path of the Titans, and every time, a giggling could be heard from the audience. A merry mirth. And perhaps that is the most problematic thing about this expansion, is that something that would have been genuinely innovative and would have actually changed the nature of the end game doesn't exist. They took it out. Classic zones remade. Is there any innovation there? No, there is not. What there is a very exceptional level of polish, but we'll be going on to that in a minute. New high-level zones. Any innovation there? Not really. One could maybe go as far as to say that the fact that there's an underwater zone is innovative, but in my experience, all it is damn annoying. It's not really innovative per se. I mean, underwater combat and underwater questing has existed before. Simply because you're setting an entire zone underwater, I wouldn't call that innovation. I certainly wouldn't call it game-changing innovation. More raid content than ever before. Any innovation there? No. No, there is not. The heroic modes and things that were innovative within Wrath, at least within the concept of World of Warcraft, I mean, the idea of multiple difficulty levels was hardly innovative on the grand scheme of things, but the heroic content within Cataclysm is not in itself innovative. Even the idea of having the Lady Sinestra boss, that isn't innovative either, because that was done with Algalon in the one and only Ulduar. New race and class combinations. A gnome priest, a blood elf warrior. Never before available race and class combinations. Any innovation there? No. Guild advancement. Is that innovative? In the sense of WoW, it is the most innovative thing they've put in. In the sense of MMOs, no, because it's stolen completely from Warhammer Online. And there are now several other games that have also done this. Did it need to be put in? Yeah, no question. I think it's an amazing addition to the game. Innovation, no? No. New PvP and rated battlegrounds. Any innovation? Not really. Tulbarand is not what I would call innovative by any stretch, and indeed a lot of people seem to prefer Wintergrass, but I don't really blame them. Because Wintergrass was better. That back in the day was fairly innovative, the whole siege warfare thing that was going on. They promised siege warfare for ages. Yeah, I remember the whole idea of... I think actually the original, if I remember correctly, in the original manual, there was something about that. Do I even have a box around here that I could look at? Probably not. Ah, there's one down here. Is there a manual in it? More to the point. No, the short answer is no. I have about 3 WoW boxes lying around here. Whatever the case. Siege weapons and stuff were mentioned in the original game manual, if I recall correctly, and it took them, what, 4 years to put them into the game? So, yeah. Archaeology. Is it innovative? In some respects. Certainly. It's a means to an end. It's a gathering profession. It's probably about as innovative as gathering professions actually get within the game. It's certainly significantly more innovative than herbalism and mining, which involve click node, then click bigger node, then click shinier node. In the case of archaeology, at least there is something there. The idea of putting together artifacts and things like that. It is a superior gathering profession to every other gathering profession. Certainly. Does it have a grand, sweeping change on the game? Well, we'll come on to that in just a moment. Because we'll be talking a little bit about how Cataclysm actually plays in comparison to previous expansions in order to properly assess exactly what it did to the game. Flying mounts in Azeroth, innovative? No. We already know that is not innovative, because flying mounts were innovative back in Burning Crusade, and they're certainly not now. Certainly great to have, though. So, looking through the major feature list, what we see is the only really innovative thing in the grand scheme of things, the Path of the Titans was removed, and there are a couple of things that were sort of innovative in the context of WoW, although not in the context of MMOs in general, and that, of course, being Guild Advancement and Archaeology. Right. Okay. So, what we can conclude is that Cataclysm is more of the same, right? Not necessarily. It's more of the same advanced. In terms of the way that the content is presented, and I refer particularly to quest content, and I think that's the most important thing to have a look at, really, because the way that they have changed quest content is not only awesome, but extremely admirable. I'd like to point out a quest that I've actually been doing on Azeroth Daily. A line of quests. A zone, indeed. It goes by the name of Eastern Plaguelands, perhaps you've heard of it. And I am extremely impressed. And it's not because, oh, it's a bunch of new stuff. Actually, a lot of it isn't. Like Pamela Redpath and things like that. That's been in since the start of the game. It's not that it's all new content. It's the way that the content is tied together. It is tied together in a way that you would expect a normal RPG to be tied together. Yes. Yes, it is. And that's vitally important. There's a couple of mechanics within it that allow that to happen. The most important, I think, is the idea of the travelling party. Yeah? The cadre of travellers that are going through the zone. You are accompanying these guys. Yeah? When you go into the zone initially, you're led there by a quest in the Western Plaguelands to go and talk to a Worgen in the Eastern Plaguelands, who then says that her travelling companions have gone missing. She's standing next to a wagon. You go speak to these guys, you rescue one of them, and you help another go, you know, who seems to have incredibly violent tendencies to go slaughter everything in the world. Nothing wrong with that. I have no issue with that at all. Hey, go slaughter all this stuff. That's fine, because that's what World of Warcraft's been doing for the last 6 years. No question. No question. So, we turn around and we say, hey, okay, what exactly is going on? Well, once you bring the two guys back, you then advance. You ride the cart to the next destination. Banter happens in the process. And that element is so good. The reason that it's so good is that it provides a less contrived manner, or some might argue a more contrived manner, but I think that the contrivance is sufficiently well hidden as to not be a contrivance. And I think people do sometimes unfairly label things as a contrivance. So, you ride the cart to the next destination, and you go to the next town on the road, and while you're there, you're given a reason for being there. beyond, hey, go to this village. I think the whole going to this village and then running across endless wastelands for no apparent reason is much less engaging than being on a journey. The idea of the Eastern Plaguelands is that it gives you the feel that you are on a journey, you are on a quest, and that goes, it harkens all the way back to what RPGs were always all about. The idea of an epic quest. I never felt, through the course of World of Warcraft up until Cataclysm, that the leveling content was ever an epic quest. It was a series of chores, and possibly a series of tubes. It was never an epic quest. There were other games that did it so much better. Lotro actually has something called the Epic Quest, which tries to tie things together. But I think Cataclysm, the zones in themselves are a quest. The whole thing, especially something like Eastern Plaguelands, that is one giant quest. It's broken down into manageable chunks, but it is a quest, and it is a narrative, and it has plot devices. Things that, again, World of Warcraft did not really have in the past. It started introducing them really in Northrend, but in reality, in the Burning Crusade and the vanilla content, plot devices such as, say, the cart and the travelling party, that didn't exist. The introduction of such plot devices is something that, to me, really gave it the edge. However, that's not all we're looking at, really, is it? Because while the questing content is excellent, bear in mind the questing content in Wrath at the time was also pretty damn good. It was. It was really quite good. Wasn't amazing, certainly not relative to what we've got right now, but it was better than what we'd had in the past. The questing was much, much better. I talked about this quite a lot during the season of Blue Please, where we're talking about the start of Wrath, certainly the first 6 months of it, and I praised that questing system, and I do not indeed recant what I said about it. It is good. It is very good. It is now even better. But that is not the meat of the content. As much as Blizzard would like us to believe otherwise, it is not, especially bearing in mind that they've now accelerated the leveling process. And the fact, I might add, that for then 20 levels we are forced to go through content that is not as good. That completely wrecks everything, in my opinion. It really, really does. The 1 to 60 content is amazing. I could very much see myself leveling maybe 2 alts. Yeah, maybe an alliance and a horde. But I would not see me leveling them anywhere past 60, because then I am forced to go back to the old school way of leveling, which I hated. They didn't do anything about that. What else have they got, though? They've got the dungeons, so is it okay to have more of the same in terms of dungeon content? Can the dungeon content innovate, really, in any real capacity? I don't know if it can. Not in the way that it's designed right now. And I think that is very, very concerning. Because what we're seeing right now, even though the dungeon content is better than it was in Wrath, although it is getting considerably worse the more that they nerf it, taking entire abilities off of bosses, wah-de-wah, good lord. Getting that 15% debuff, or indeed buff. I like to call it a debuff to intelligence. It might sound like a buff, but really you're just debuffing people's effort. That's all it is. It's sad, really, but that is the case. So you go through that, and then you go to your raid content, and then you wonder, is it okay now? After 6 years, is it okay to continue to simply keep presenting that same content over and over and over again? We're going to be asking you that question after the break, folks. And it'll be a segment on, are you still playing, and are you indeed still enthused? And I want to know why. And I'll get a nice cross-section of the audience. I think it is very, very difficult to come to a proper conclusion on this, because you're actually talking about changing a winning formula that's actually endured for so long, and it continues to bring in new players. To me, I think the real problem with this and the way that this is currently designed is that I have come to the conclusion that I will never play a WoW-style MMO ever again. And the reason for that is that I've so had my fill of the way that WoW does things. So things like Rift, I do not care. I don't. I care about games that are different, yeah? That have significant differences in them, like DC Universe. You know, I care about DC Universe because the combat system is so different. I care about PlanetSide Next because it is so different. In terms of the WoW press button to fire magic missile approach, the questing through to the dungeons, through to the raiding, I think I have had my fill. Whether or not I will keep playing in WoW, it is certainly a possibility. I think that, I've invested now so much into WoW that I will probably keep playing it. And to some degree, I will keep enjoying it. Not as much as I used to, but I'll still enjoy it. But if you ask me to switch to something like Rift or some other game that is similar to WoW in the way that it's designed, in the way that the questing works, in the way that the talents work, in the way that the dungeon works, in the way that the combat works, I would turn around and say to you, ha! No. I have had my fill of that kind of game for a very long time. We'll be looking to your emails after the break, and we'll be discussing the validity of what exactly you're saying right there in terms of the amount that you play the game and just how enthusiastic you are about it. In the meantime, however, we can take an opportunity to play some fabulous metal. Yes, I have a few ideas about the kind of things we should play, folks. Yes, I do indeed. So many options, so many choices. It's problematic, really. You end up being limited, perhaps, by the number of choices that you actually have. But I'm going to go as far as to play something by Machine Eye Supremacy, and we call this Shinigami. I'll be right back after this. Enjoy.